T.B.Photo X1.5 TFX, and welcome back to another video. Well, this one is gonna be titled something. It's a musical experience. That, I think, is gonna be the title. It's a musical experience. And what is a musical experience? Well, you know, you can't believe it that I actually went into a Red Cross and I browsed through some old records. This is a couple of years ago now, actually. I just browsed through a couple of records and I found this iconic piece. And it's such an experience, pun intended, to listen to this album. It is basically, you know, you can't compare it with anything that came before it, because this changed everything we knew about popular music up until that point. And what is it? It's nothing less than, yeah, it's my beat up copy, flea market bargain, of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, the first album that the Jimi Hendrix Experience put out, and thereby Jimi Hendrix. And also this album has a little bit of an interesting photographic history, because this here, this fisheye image on the front of the cover, I would bet that this is aerochrome, which is basically a Kodak film stock that is, unfortunately, I don't think it's made anymore, but it should be brought back in this day and age to promote film photography. Aerochrome is a color positive, so it's a slide film, a color positive infrared spectrum film. So that's a little bit why the skin tones are the way they are, and the way that the foliage in the background is the color it is. But it really adds to the psychedelic trip feel of the fisheye and the, you know, extended spectrum, you know, infrared color, you know, color positive film that took this, you know, this image. It's so iconic, it's insane. But anyway, just to list the songs that are on this record, I mean, it's iconic to say the least. I mean, first off, you have Purple Haze. I mean, that's a classic right there. Manic Depression, Hey Joe. I mean, who doesn't like Hey Joe? Love or Confusion, May This Be Love, I Don't Live Today. I mean, and then side 2 begins with one of the, I mean, this is just chills down the spine, basically. The Wind Cries Mary. I mean, that one is so brilliant in its performance and so on. You can't believe it's a 3-piece group that, you know, plays it. Fire, I mean, also that one, great. Third Stone from the Sun, basically references Earth's place in the solar system. Foxy Lady, I mean, come on, it's such a classic. And then the final one, Are You Experienced? Well, this one has a little bit of a meaning to me as well, because my father actually has told me several times that he has actually seen Jimi Hendrix live. And I've always asked, where did you see him live then? Well, it was basically in a old, run-down school gym hall in the steelwork town of Sandviken, which is basically a couple of miles north of Gävle, where I grew up. So my father has actually seen this master, experienced him live. And he always told the story that Jimmy walks on stage with one of it, what is it now? He played it the wrong way around, so his left hand was in a plaster of Paris cast, because he had actually been in Gothenburg the night before and trashed a hotel room, I think it even was with the Stones, and broken his arm, but they had only put the cast from his a little bit past his elbow to his wrist, so he was still able to play. So he played that set with a broken forearm actually. So that's a little bit of a family music story, so I'm putting forward to you guys. And also, this guy moved some air when he came along. I mean, first of all, being this guy who plays a Stratocaster the wrong way round, I mean, but first of all, that's brilliant in its own right. But it was also one of the first musicians in my mind that really used the instrument in a way that was never thought up by the designer Leo Fender. I mean, Leo Fender was basically one of these guys who wanted to combine a Spanish steel string guitar with a Hawaiian lap steel, thereby the tremolo system, or the trem system. But anyway, people like Jeff Beck and Jimi Hendrix and so on made the Stratocaster feedback, and they used it, they implemented feedback in their songs in a brilliant way that has been imitated by almost everyone and their, and everybody and their neighbor who plays guitars and who play guitar, I should probably say. But anyway, the most iconic pedals that are synonymous with Hendrix is basically the Dallas Arbiter Fuzz Face, which is basically this crackling lo-fi distortion pedal, and he basically was known to use two versions of it. First, it was the original with germanium transistors. Yeah, that's about how much of an anorak I am when it comes to this artist. He used a first one, that was the first generation that he used, and then when he was with the band of Gypsies, he actually changed to another one that had silicon transistors in instead, and that is basically that it gives you less grit and more, it becomes a little bit more of a booster pedal rather than a full-on, in your gnarly fuzz. So basically the germanium ones actually started to change in character when the battery was draining. So that's the first pedal that you might be synonymous with Hendrix. No, it's not, it's the wah pedal. Basically, the wah pedal, one of the biggest, accidental, divine accidents in musical history. That was an experience in itself. It was basically that a company known as Thomas Organ Company got the license to make Vox amplifiers in the United States. And an engineer at Thomas Organ named Brad Plunkett was tasked with replacing an expensive toggle switch on the Vox amplifiers that said MRB, or mid-range boost. So what they did was that he made a tunable circuit that affected the mid-range of the guitar, and he had one of his fellow techs come and test that little pile of electronics out, and they actually stole a volume pedal from a Vox Jaguar organ and built this into it, and that's how the wah-wah pedal as we know it today was created. It was by necessity and the cheapskanks that was running Thomas Organ Company, which was basically subsidized of Whirlpool Electronics. Yeah, a little bit of a anorak in musical history there as well. But that's basically how the wah pedal was introduced, and there's even this fabled story that the person who introduced Jimi Hendrix to the wah pedal was basically Frank Zappa. That's, I don't know if anybody has any more information about that. That's what I've been told, but put it in the comment section if you think that's not true. But anyway, let's continue on. The next pedal that is so, I mean, all of these guys on this one is so iconic. But anyway, you can also chime in the engineer that Hendrix used. I mean, that guy worked with everybody from, not just Hendrix, but also I think Beatles, Zeppelin, Stones, Kiss first demo, Eddie Kramer, who became the head studio technician at Electric Ladyland in New York, Jimi Hendrix studio in the Village. But anyway, also you have the fabled Roger Mayer, a guy who had made a fuzz pedal for Led Zeppelin guitarist, now I can't remember his name, which is Jimmy Page. Roger Mayer was a guy who worked at the British Admiralty, Naval Admiralty, and he was a wizard with electronics, and he also became Jimi Hendrix guitar tech, and he switched out transistors and capacitors and all sorts of things in Jimi Hendrix pedals. And he even made Jimmy this special pedal, which was the Roger Mayer Octavia pedal, which Hendrix always called Octavio, which gave that end of the world, gnarly upper octave sound, a extremely distorted, almost ringtone sound. And I think you can hear that on Purple Haze. Actually, you can hear that tone in the solo section of Purple Haze. And then also there was this pedal, the Univox pedal that came from, I think it was a Univox pedal, came from Japan, the Univibe, which was basically a pedal that was supposed to make a mono signal sound, give a mono signal a Doppler effect to mimic the sound of a Leslie cabinet, popularized by players like Eric Clapton and I think even George Harrison. If you listen to the Beatles track Here Comes the Sun, you can actually hear that Leslie effect that it was supposed to be mimicked in the Univibe, but Hendrix, he really used. If you have seen the movie Woodstock, if you haven't, I don't know where you've been, he plays the Star Spangled Banner on guitar, and that's when he uses the Univibe to get that rotary sound that is so iconic. So yeah, as you can see probably here, I'm one huge Hendrix fan. Parents at home have a box with a box collection with all the Hendrix LPs. It's, I think, the white one. So yeah, it runs in the family, so to speak. And they never forced any of this music upon me. I basically found this out for myself, and it is brilliant. If you talk to modern day players like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, I think even Slash, and of course Zakk Wylde, all of these guys, it boils down to this guy. For all of them, basically. A lot of great players of today inspired by this guy right here. So yeah, that's basically, I think that's going to be basically all for now for this rant. I think we can probably call this about the Jimi Hendrix experience, both the first album, the gear, the photo, and so on. I mean, Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on bass. I mean, those guys also made a phenomenal job doing the stuff that they did with this guy. I mean, when the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper came out, they actually had a performance in London with the Beatles attending in the audience, and apparently before the gig, Hendrix shows up with the album and tells Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding that they're gonna play the title track, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, not even, almost hours, if not just a couple of days after that album had been released. That is an insane story about the brilliance of this artist who unfortunately left us way too soon. But I think that's all for me for now. This is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo as always, and yeah, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And do you guys out there in YouTube land have any of your own Hendrix stories or memorabilia? Please put it in the comment section below. Let's get a discussion going about this brilliant artist. So yeah, it's all for me for now, so take care from now on. Bye.